Can Christians engage in entertainment to the glory of God, period?
I think that Christians should be involved in entertainment, and we should be doing it to the highest level. We should be the most technically excellent people in our fields.
And so if we leave entertainment to the pagans, the Christians have just taken themselves out of the gospel opportunity in that moment.
That's right.
Where should the heart of a believer be when you're participating in something that is marketed as entertainment?
The idea of Christian entertainment is they're marketing that entertainment specifically to people who profess to be Christians.
Marketing.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's the term that's
loaded.
the problem.
I think entertainment is one of the biggest poisons in hashtag cultural Christianity today. We're just, entertainment is killing the church.
We entertain ourselves to death with everything else all week long, and then on Sunday morning we just duplicate it.
There has been a blending of those two things. That we have taken the business element of the entertainment industry and incorporated it into our church gatherings, when the two should be nothing alike.
So like Steve wants to throw your hazer in the dumpster and say, "Death to you, hazer."
Which in a lot of cases is fair. Is totally fair.
I don't want a hazer in our church. I don't want a disco ball in our church. I don't want lighting up the performers on the stage during our worship with music, right? So, but in the setting of a concert, I don't know that I'm totally against that.
And I'm not sure why you're totally against it in the context of the local church.
I would literally destroy it if I saw you buy one.
And that's the question is anytime you start introducing something like this, I think you have to ask why.
The argument against the fog machine, if you're going to be consistent, is the same argument for the reverb that we are all totally okay with.
I work in the entertainment industry alongside Christians for the glory of God.
I like it.
Yeah, I do too. So you're trying to plunder it from the inside.
Yes.
I love it. Welcome back to Plundering Leviathan, a podcast of North Center Church, where we aim to reclaim culture's gold for Christ's glory. And we're here this morning with a first-time guest, Tyler Cornelius. We're going to be talking about entertainment, specifically Christian entertainment. And Jeremiah is back, pastor of North Center Church. I'm Steve, his co-elder, under pastor.
Bishop Steve.
Episcopos.
Yes.
The guy on the left, whatever you want to call him. So Tyler, welcome.
Thank you.
And it's good to have you here.
Good to be here.
Tell us about Tyler Cornelius.
You got the name pronunciation exactly right, which is great.
Man.
It's tough.
Tyler.
Yes.
Okay.
People always, it's a Tyler sometimes. It's crazy what you get.
Yeah. Right.
So I grew up in Pennsylvania, a very small rural town. Kind of toward high school into college, I thought I wanted to study music. I thought I wanted to be a music teacher, band director, all that kind of thing. I was a trumpet player all throughout college and in high school. So I went off to college, thought that I was going to be a band director, thought I was going to be a trumpet player for life. Realized very quickly that wasn't a passion, that wasn't what the Lord had for me, it wasn't something I was interested in. I always thought it was. That was the only real outlet that I had seen in kind of my small town with music. So I went to college and discovered that there's this whole big world of Christian music, whatever that means, and all the different facets that there are with that. So my current job that I have now, I didn't even know existed back in high school. I didn't know that.
Where'd you go to college? Just real quick.
So I went to Messiah. It was college, now it's university up in Pennsylvania. And I actually didn't graduate. So I went there for 3 years, and I discovered this program down in Nashville, Tennessee, that I went and studied at for a semester in the spring of my junior year. And that kind of springboarded me into a job in the fall. So I had this decision before me. Am I going to go start earning a living in the industry that I want to go be in, or do I want to stay in education, finish my degree? And so I made the leap to just move to Nashville, start doing that for a living. My first job, I always say I peaked very early. My first job was with VeggieTales Live. So big, these inflatable, guys in these inflatable costumes moving the mouth from the inside. Yeah. So I would say I peaked very early in my career.
It's amazing.
Speaking of Christian entertainment.
Yep.
Yes.
VeggieTales, yep.
Right. VeggieTales. Oh, wow. That's amazing. And you met we'll get into the career trajectory in just a moment.
Yep.
I want to go back a little bit and just hear your faith story. How'd you come to know Christ as your Lord and Savior?
So I was super fortunate to grow up in a Christian home, had wonderful parents who brought me up in the ways of the Lord, where everything was just soaked in whatever you do it for the Lord. So whether that's music, if it's athletics, if it's friendships, no matter what you're doing, there's a purpose behind it. I feel like anybody who grows up in that environment, you have a moment or a time where, hey, this kind of became personal, this kind of became my own. For me, I think that was around college, was while I was kind of discovering what do I want to do with my life, in what ways am I going to serve the Lord.
And you never stopped. You're trying to serve the Lord through your career now in the music business.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Mm-hmm.
So go back to that. You were talking about making a decision. Am I going to finish my degree? Am I going to go off and launch into a career? And you obviously chose the career path. So,
and that sort of just turned into a cascade of this job turns into this job, turns into this job, open doors. And it's I mean, every Christian has had a moment where you're saying, I'm not sure what the right path is. I need a door to open. I need some direction. And that for me was the first time where I was faced with two really big decisions. I could stay in school and hope that the job that I'm being offered right now is still available to me in a year and a half, or I can just make the leap, go say yes, go do it. The thing that caused me to make that leap and start pursuing kind of the technical side of the music business was I had a really good friend at the time who was the guy who was offering me the job. So I'd gotten to know him really well. He was a believer. He was a really strong mentor of mine. That kind of gave me the encouragement and the push I needed to say, I think this is the right thing. This could be a good thing, and it could lead to more things.
So what do you do? What is your technical musical gig?
So that first gig that I had was the lighting director for the VeggieTales, which was the most low pressure, easy thing in the world, because it was basically don't put blue lights on Bob and make him look purple.
the tomato.
Yeah. And I'm running lights for a bunch of 3 to 5 year olds who don't care if the lighting doesn't look right or if I miss a cue or something. So as far as a first job in the industry goes, I couldn't have asked for a lower pressure. It was, yeah. So after that, I tried to kind of pursue the audio side of things for a while, and that just didn't seem to be happening. There were a couple of doors that opened for different artists and different management companies, just different environments in the video side. And I hadn't, kind of like I mentioned earlier, I never knew that the job that I'm doing now existed. I didn't know it was a career path, but I sort of just kept falling headfirst into another job, a new artist, a new company. I started building, if you've ever been to a concert and you see the big LED walls, those displays, I started doing that. I started running those. Over the years, I just kind of fell into more of a niche aspect of that job. So most of what I do now is directing shows, which is the guy that sits behind the desk and calls up all the camera shots, so decides, which camera is on screen at what time.
Got it. So the setting in which you perform this job, auditorium typically, or stadium even, right?
Big venues, yeah.
Big venues, right. So, and then there's big screens on either side. You got to explain for guys like me, because quite frankly, I haven't been to a concert since Pink Floyd in the 90s. Just to give you an idea of where I come from.
Like Johnny Cash.
So, for instance, Target Center.
Yeah.
Big venue. I don't know if have you been to?
Yeah, I've done some shows there.
Okay. So Target Center seats something like 50,000.
Something crazy like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have the stage somewhere on the floor. Maybe where the basketball court is, or something, or part of it, and then screens to the side, big LED. So you have to build those from
every
scratch.
day.
Wow.
So everything packs up into semi trucks. You try to build it in such a way that it's really quick and easy to put together and tear apart every day. At the end of the night, everything goes back into a truck. Overnight, you drive to the next show. We sleep on buses. So we have nocturnal drivers that take us from city to city. And then you wake up the next morning in a new city and you build it again and do a show that night.
Wow. And so you have
wow.
That's a lot of wires.
Yeah. So stuff like that, you really have to be mindful of how am I connecting this every day, taping wires together that go to the same spots, trying to make things as quick and easy as you can.
We're gonna get into like some of the more redemptive aspects towards the end, but have you ever had something go horribly wrong?
Oh, for sure.
In the middle of a show
Yeah.
because of wires and whatever.
Yeah. Stuff fails, things break. But and we'll kind of get into this a little bit too. But one of my favorite phrases is, "We're not here curing cancer." Like everybody tends to have a pretty solid understanding of, okay, we're doing work that matters. We want to be passionate about what we do. We want to be excellent at what we do. But if a wall stops working, if a wire breaks, things happen.
Yeah.
Sure. And so you're the guy now. So stage is set up. Everything's where it needs to be. Lights are where they need to be. Fog machines. They're in there.
We do use fog machines.
Fog machines.
We call them hazers.
What are they called?
Hazers.
Hazers. Oh, okay. Hazers. Do you do like gold flake dust coming down?
We don't do that.
Praise God.
At least nothing that I've been a part of.
just
What about like disco kind of lighting?
Disco balls for sure. We've used. Yeah. Not me personally, but the tours I've been a part of.
I was at a concert. Is it Hillsong? One of the Hillsongs where they sing the song 100 billion galaxies are born. And they sang that line, and the disco ball came.
And it lights up the room.
And it was just like, you were surrounded in galaxies. And I was like,
cool.
This is what creation looked like.
Yeah, so that sounds like a fun job.
Steve really wants a disco ball here at North Center. That's why we have you on.
Lies.
Really.
Total.
Just to try to pitch this idea.
He's trying to figure out how do we get the hazers and the disco balls.
Yep.
And we figure, first if we can pitch it to the church, and then we have somebody that's an inside guy that can help us
Direct
with it.
violation of a commandment somewhere in the Bible. Multiple ones. This is not true. I am a kind
What
of
are you, Steve?
A Luddite.
A Luddite? A Luddite?
I resist technology to a large degree.
Okay.
I've embraced certain aspects of it, but I'm just not a fan of technology. So this is going to be
Kind of on different ends of the spectrum here.
Pretty much, yeah. I think I was born. I told Jeremiah often. I don't think I was born necessarily in the wrong decade or century. I was probably born in the wrong millennium.
Okay.
I resist it as much as I can.
Yeah.
I think most people that are listening are not like me. They've been to concerts. They've probably been to Casting Crowns or Hillsong or those folks and seen these. But these are big venues that you're in charge of. And so you set up the stage, do all the things, and then you're sitting in the director's chair, if you will.
So I'll be sitting backstage. I have a headset on so I can talk to all of my different camera operators. If it's the beginning of the tour, we might not know the show yet. So it's my job to listen to the music, to know what the set list is, to know where key moments happen, and to be coaching in real time all of my camera operators on, hey, there's a guitar solo coming up. Hey, there's a speaking moment coming up. I need camera 1 to get the shot for me. I need camera 2 to be on standby to get a guitar shot or a violin shot or something like that.
So you create the show as far as the videography is concerned.
The visual, camera elements. That's my job.
You create it. Well, so what's your title?
Video director.
Video director. And you freelance now.
Yep. So I was full-time with the company for about 7 years. I left in 2023, and so now I just work for myself. I can say yes to things, no to things, which is neat because I have a lot of control over who I work with, what kinds of jobs I do. I've worked with a lot of people mostly in the Christian music industry. I've done a little bit of country so far, but mostly in the Christian side. Rachel and I were really fortunate for a long time to work with Casting Crowns. So that was kind of our bread and butter. We got to do it together. So Rachel was out working for a nonprofit, and I was out doing the video side. So we got to do that for a number of years. This spring, I just finished a tour with TobyMac. It was his Hit Steep tour. So it was him, David Crowther, a band called Kane, a couple other openers. But I've been in most corners of the Christian music industry. So if it's a big Christian band, I've probably worked with them in some capacity.
It's fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's exciting. Yeah. So at these concerts, you're saying there's like speaking appearances, so maybe presentation of the gospel during the concert, or talking about the song and what it means to the artist. So in a Christian music concert, it sounds like it's very gospel-centered, if you will.
It can be. Okay. Yeah. There's just like in any area of life, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I've been really fortunate to be with people like Casting Crowns, some artists that I really love and respect, who it is just soaked in gospel presentation. It's, hey, we're going to sing this song. The song is not the point. But one of Mark Hall of Casting Crowns, one of his favorite phrases is, we're not the point, we're here to point you to the point. So he says that after every single one of his songs. He'll say, we wrote this song because of this and because it points to Jesus in this way. So yeah, I've been really fortunate to see a lot of the very redemptive, gospel-oriented aspect of the Christian music industry. There's also a lot, that you can get into the kind of darker side, and the not everybody is doing it for the right reasons, and I think anybody is probably aware that there are people out there, using this kind of vehicle for a personal gain. Yeah, just like in any other area of life.
Well, I want to use that as a jumping off point. I think you're right. And we'll get there to like the negative aspects. But I do want to say something about like TobyMac, for instance, and the Christian music industry and his music in particular. And this is a story, I think you know it. So I came to faith late in life, came to faith through the Bible, but there was a seed planted through a TobyMac song.
Really?
I was in a place where I didn't have access to a lot of radio stations. There was like 2 stations that I could listen to. One was country, and the other one was like a Christian music station. I think Refuge Radio is what it was called. So I would listen to that station because I had a good beat and I could run to it. There was one song in particular by TobyMac, and there's a line in there about, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world yet lose his soul?
I don't want to gain the whole world and lose my soul.
Yeah, I can almost hear it on repeat in my head.
I don't want to gain the whole world and lose my soul.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
And so, as an unbeliever, I'm listening to that music, walking around this track or running around a track. Fast forward some months later, I finally opened the Bible in a dark time of my life, and I read through Matthew and I read through Mark, and I got to Mark chapter 8, where Jesus says that in his word. What does it profit a man to gain the whole world yet lose his soul? What can a man give in exchange for his soul? Take up your cross and follow me. Yep. And I was born again on that verse. And TobyMac planted the seeds in my heart, in my mind, through his music and through Christian radio, to then when I encountered Christ in his word, in that verse, I was born again. And so I have an affinity for Christian music in that regard. And so it's going to be as much as a resistor as I am to entertainment and amusing ourselves ad nauseum. There is redemptive.
So my first exposure to TobyMac was at the Sunshine.
Sunshine Fest.
TobyMac was performing, and before he gets on stage, they have all of the lights and the fogs and fog machines and whatnot, and then they have a bunch of dancers get on stage. He's still not on stage, and they start doing their dance, and their lyric is TobyMac is back, TobyMac is back, and I was like.
And you met the Lord.
No, I turned around and found a different concert to go. It's like, it's good.
And that's what makes
TobyMac.
That's what makes this conversation so hard, is because you have both aspects of that. Christian music can be used for great soul-winning purposes, can impact people's lives greatly, but then it can also be distorted, used for worldly gain and popularity and all of those things. And so that is a tough one.
So a couple of things we've done so far is we've used the word entertainment quite a bit, and we haven't clarified what we mean by entertainment, and we've used the phrase Christian music without clarifying what do we mean by Christian music. I remember one time turning on a song on the radio in the basketball practice with some guys who were more conservative minded than I was. I was looking for a Christian radio station, and the song came on the radio. People get ready, Jesus is coming, soon we'll be going home. People get ready. and the guy sitting next to me goes, that doesn't sound like Christian music to me, because it had a drum beat in it. And so when we say Christian music, we got to define what we mean there. But more particularly to this episode is entertainment. I listened to a podcast recently where these guys spent an hour or 2 hours talking about entertainment without ever addressing some more fundamental, like, baseline questions. They just assumed the premise from the beginning, that entertainment is good and healthy, and so now they were just talking about forms in particular that are healthy or unhealthy. And I'd like to rewind the tape a little bit and first give a definition for entertainment that we can all work together with. And on that definition, start with not with a premise, but with a question. Is entertainment okay? Mm-hmm. Does the Bible give space for entertainment as a healthy diet in the Christian life? Can Christians engage in entertainment to the glory of God? Period.
We need to define entertainment.
That's right.
Sure.
So let's.
So how do you define entertainment?
So the expert in the room, Tyler.
I'll give you my Google definition. We can go from here. Entertainment is the action of providing or being provided with amusement or enjoyment.
The action of providing or being provided with amusement
Or enjoyment.
or enjoyment. Okay. I want to create the healthiest definition possible. That's my disposition. So maybe you're going to disagree. I like
enjoyment.
Enjoyment. That feels like a very Piperian Christian hedonist biblical word. Like in your presence is fullness of joy, embedded in this idea of enjoyment and pleasures forevermore. So, do you like that? Is that
yeah, and I'm with you as far as amusement. I kind of get this feeling of I'm not so sure about that one. Enjoyment, though, I think. I mean, should a Christian be allowed to or be able to experience enjoyment in life? I think that's a fairly, baseline question that we could ask.
Yes.
And I think the obvious answer is yes. I think Christians should be allowed to enjoy their lives.
Yes.
Amusement, if you talk about, I want to enjoy my life in such a way where I am passively, not mentally, spiritually engaged with the things I'm participating in, I think that is the piece where we start getting into the gray area and the black area of what are we participating in and why are we participating in it.
Yep.
So Noah Webster defines, Merriam-Webster, the newer version, defines entertainment as amusement or diversion provided especially by performers.
Yeah.
And so I think we the enjoyment and the joy or the participating in something that's really drawing you outside of yourself and into something bigger, right? And you're receiving joy from it is good, but you can't really set aside the diversion part. That you're actually taking your whatever's going on with you in your life or around you in the world. What you're doing is you're taking yourself out of that. You're diverting your attention away from the world and immersing yourself into some other environment, whether it be music, whether it be cinema, plays, and all kinds of other entertainment. So there's a diversionary or kind of a anesthetizing impact also. Anesthetize, just taking your feelings, your emotions. Like if you're having a tough day, for instance, or the world's crumbling around you, and you want to stop thinking about it, you're going to maybe turn to an entertainment to dull your senses.
Okay.
Right, take your mind off of things. I want to take my mind off things, so I'm going to turn on this show or whatever on TV, or scroll YouTube and watch funny cat videos. Yeah. And epic dad saves. And the next thing you know, you're on some rabbit trail watching, cops brain some felon or something. But I mean, anyway, I digress.
Yep.
Never happened to me. Hypothetical, purely. But it's a diversion too.
Yeah, and then I don't think you can frame that like you can frame anything in a negative light. I don't think I don't think that the act of diversion is inherently negative, right?
Because what are you diverting from?
Yeah, and that can be it, or just the act itself. So you have like wine gladdening the heart. What is that?
Troubles of the world, anxiety, those kinds of things can help. So wine
Laughter
can help
does
gladden.
good, like a medicine. So you have some biblical principles at play. Maybe it's similar to parables. Jesus taking us somewhere away from where we are right now into something else. Like imagine that you are the farmer and you're going and you're scattering. Like we're no longer here on this mountainside. We are somewhere else doing something else.
Paul would say, do not be anxious about anything.
Right.
Present your requests to God. And then what does he say after that? Think on these things. What things? Think on the good and the pure and the beautiful. And so he's saying that's a diversionary tactic, if you will. Don't focus on your anxieties and your problems here, but think on good things. Now, where I would push back is what are you thinking on? So if you go down that rabbit trail on YouTube and you end up, on the cop videos, you're not necessarily thinking on good and pure and praiseworthy things. You've diverted your attention and immersed yourself into a form of entertainment that is not pure and good and beautiful.
So I think you're right. But I'm saying, like, have we landed on a definition for entertainment?
Well, I was pushing back a little bit on just the enjoyment part, because
Gotcha.
I think, so what should entertainment be? Like from a Christian perspective, I think that was what you guys were hitting on. And what I'm saying is the world, and I think all of us might see entertainment as something different than that.
Yeah.
And Merriam-Webster, for instance, says that. Like it's more of a diversionary thing, or also a diversionary thing.
Yeah.
Not just enjoyment or amusement.
I think one of the tough things to nail down when you're defining something like this is I think it's inherently a subjective word. There are things that I'm entertained by that you're not going to be entertained by. There's such a personal preference and a subjectivity at play, where I think a lot of this, okay, is it okay to enjoy things? Is it okay to be distracted by something? Is it okay to be diverted? I think in a lot of ways it's going to boil down to where should the heart of a believer be when you're participating in something that is marketed as entertainment. I'm not saying there isn't a larger scale, there's not a working definition, there's not a societal definition of what it is, but I think in a lot of ways it's going to boil down to, in the heart of a believer, how do they respond to something that's being presented as this is enjoyment or this is entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. Seems wise. Here's the definitions that I want to have for entertainment. All right, so going back to Webster's 1828, this is back when the English language was rich. He writes, number 1, entertainment is provisions of the table, meaning a feast or a superb dinner or supper. So that's getting back to this New Testament imagery of entertainment, like entertaining strangers or entertaining angels, like Abram entertaining the 3 guests. Number 2, getting more to where we're at, is the amusement, pleasure, or instruction derived from conversation, discourse, argument, oratory, music, dramatic performances, etc. Here's the phrase I underlined. The pleasure which the mind receives from anything interesting and which holds or arrests the attention. That's the definition that I personally want to grab a hold of with entertainment. Mm-hmm. The pleasure which the mind receives from anything, which gets to the subjective part, anything interesting and which holds or arrests the attention. And I'm receiving pleasure or enjoyment from this thing that has just captivated my mind.
Yeah.
So I threw it into ChatGPT, and I said, from my perspective, my Christian perspective, give me a good definition for entertainment.
Okay, how'd it do?
My GPT knows me. we're pretty good friends.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, you are.
Writes good sermons for you too?
No, it can't, which is kind of frustrating. I suppose it's a good thing. Not that I haven't tried, but here's ChatGPT. Entertainment, biblically considered, is any activity that provides enjoyment or rest to the human spirit, mind, or body. Provides enjoyment or rest to the human spirit, mind, or body, often through storytelling, music, humor, or celebration. And then, to your Philippians point, is to be engaged with in a way that honors God, refreshes the soul, and aligns with truth and righteousness.
Yeah. It did pretty good.
It did.
Yeah.
Yeah, you like the rest part, I know.
I do.
Yeah. You were on a sabbatical last summer.
Yeah.
You got to rest and you just thought about it the whole time.
Yeah. Clarifying that rest and entertainment are not synonymous. Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of entertainment that is not at all restful. Netflix is not restful. You might be at rest as far as, physically, but your mind is not resting. Your mind is just being numbed. So anyway, what I want to say is...
Well, in arresting your attention, was that in the...
Arresting your attention.
Right.
Yeah.
So, not at rest.
There's a way that your attention can be arrested and you be at rest. And there's a way that your attention is arrested and you're not at rest. For example, I think my attention can be arrested with the Northern Lights and I be at rest. My attention can be arrested by some dumb show on Netflix. And what I mean is, when the event is over, do I feel rested? Or do I just feel distracted? When you get done watching the Northern Lights, you get done and you just go, man, I feel so at peace. I feel so whole. I feel like I just got poured into and I'm at rest. Versus you sit down and you watch, this Netflix show, and you can, same amount of time, same amount of like immobility, and you get done and you don't feel at all energized or refreshed. Do you see the difference?
Yeah,
I see a difference.
There is a difference.
All right.
Yeah, and the question is, what's arresting your attention?
And I think where we're going with this is, are you arrested by fog machines and lights and LED screens, or are you arrested by the message that's being supported by these things?
Okay.
Yeah. That's good.
All right, so the definition that we're going to work with for entertainment is pleasure, which the mind receives from anything interesting, which holds or arrests the attention. We like that?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
So, broad definition of entertainment for everybody. Not necessarily Christians, but this would be a definition
just
for
everybody.
All human beings.
Yep.
Okay.
So then I think the next place to go is Scripture. We've been alluding to it all over the place, but does the Bible have a category for a healthy form of pleasure received from the mind being captivated by something?
I think you touched on where I wanted to go with the good wine. You were talking about that.
Okay.
I couldn't help but thinking about Christ's first miracle. He shows up at a wedding. He hasn't revealed himself to people yet. My time has not yet come. And the first miracle that he performs is creating the good wine out of water. Late in the evening, it's later in the day, the festivities have been happening, the wedding celebration is going on, and Christ reveals himself for the first time by offering good wine in the midst of a celebration. And we're not specifically told in this passage, there was singing and dancing and there's all these things happening, but this is a first century Jewish wedding. There's probably some element of there's performing musicians, there's dancing, there's laughter, there's feasting, there's all of these things. And rather than, for the first time, Christ resisting that and pulling away from that, teaching people, this is happening over here, but we're going to go over here and do this other thing that's more sanctified, more holy, whatever it might be. The first time he chooses to reveal himself is in that setting. And maybe I'm reading too much into that, but I think that there's something to the enjoyment that is the first time that Christ does the supernatural.
That's good.
It's good.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah, no, I like it. So that's one example.
Okay.
Of entertainment, if you will, in the New Testament. You can go all the way back to the Red Sea crossing in Miriam's song. So there was celebration and dancing and song. That could be an early example, in the Old Testament.
So are you equating song with entertainment, just for clarity?
Well, I think the act of performing the song, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, so she would have been singing the song, right? And then there would have been people observing the song and their attention being arrested, if you will, and being drawn up into the beauty of what God just did, and focusing on His goodness and His miraculous provision and care for them and providence. And so, the observers would have been drawn out of themselves, perhaps.
Do you think there were observers?
Or were they participating? I don't know.
The chant that they would have used is going to be one that is culturally familiar. And almost certainly it was sung responsively. And so Mary's going to sing, or Miriam's going to sing, and then the people are going to respond. And then she's going to sing, and then they're going to respond.
Yeah, well, and to your point, the introduction to this song in Exodus 15, verse 1 says, "Then Moses and the children of Israel sang this song." Mm-hmm. And so you're right, it was responsive in some way because they were singing it with her.
Yeah.
Which,
so that's Moses, and then Miriam jumps in a little bit later.
Yeah,
but it's the same thing.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Song of Miriam starts in verse 20.
Yeah.
But Moses' song also.
Would both of you say that music is entertainment?
I wouldn't say music equals entertainment. I would say music can be entertaining. Music can be entertainment.
Yeah.
Is there a way in which music can't be entertaining? Is there ever a context where music would not be said to be a form of entertainment?
if our definition is something that you do for the enjoyment of people, plural, then I think you could make an argument that if you're just playing the piano in your room, there's no entertainment happening. There's not a performative element to it.
Does there have to be performance for something to be entertaining?
I think there has to be a performer,
Okay.
and a watcher or partaker of the performance.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this is the nuance between entertainment and recreation. So if you're playing the piano and it's just you and you're getting enjoyment out of it, what do you call that enjoyment? Is that recreation? Is that entertainment? How would you label that?
I think recreation, pleasure, personal enjoyment, maybe. I think you're onto something with performing. Mm-hmm. I think entertainment, there is a built-in sort of idea that there is a performer-audience relationship.
All right. Mm-hmm. So let's go there. Is a lightning storm entertainment?
Who's the performer?
Yeah. You tell me.
Yeah. No, that's a good question.
And who's the audience? You're the audience. The last 3 chapters of Job is telling the story of God working the elements of the world. So you have the Aurora Borealis. What is that entertainment? There is a performer, and the Bible is so clear. This is not random cosmic happenings where molecules are just interacting with each other in a certain random way that's creating these things. No, there is a God who is painting a sunset in the sky actively every night, and there are observers. What do you call that?
Could be entertainment.
I want to call it entertainment.
I think you could call it divine entertainment.
You can go back to the creation of the world.
Yeah.
There were observers at the creation of the world when he hung the stars, right?
There is congregational singing as God is creating the world, and my hunch is that song has something to do with the celebration of the wonder of what this audience is seeing.
There's an example that I think checks all of these boxes. There's a performer, there's an audience, there's entertainment happening as we're defining it that I'm curious your thoughts on. 1 Samuel 16 talks about David playing the harp for Saul to ease his mind.
Ooh,
that's the phrase used. And so it was whenever the Spirit of God was upon Saul that David would take a harp and play it with his hand. Then Saul would become refreshed and well, and the distressing spirit would depart from him. Mm-hmm. So you have a performer, you have an audience, and you have an impact. I think that tracks with everything that we're...
No question. I agree. Yeah, that's an example in the Bible of entertainment. Sure.
And you would say a healthy example.
Yeah.
Okay. I think so.
Absolutely.
That's what you're arguing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Or even David dancing before the ark. It was sort of a performance.
Yeah, see, now I think we've blurred the lines between worship and entertainment. So David's dancing before the ark. He comes back home, and his wife's pretty upset, and he's like, "Look, I wasn't dancing for you. Sorry you didn't like it, but I actually wasn't dancing for you or anybody else. I was dancing for the Lord." And I'm going to get, that's a phrase that Steve likes, which I can't wait for him to actually model for us sometime. But it's like, I'm going to get even more undignified than this. To say okay, if that's entertainment, how does entertainment look different than worship?
So that was worship-tainment.
Or just worship.
That's a term I've heard bandied about. Worship-tainment.
Yeah, that's too
Have you heard that?
No. Have you heard that?
I haven't heard that, no.
That is a term I've heard. And I don't think it's in a positive light.
No, I don't think so either. But you're not going to say that David was doing something negative there.
His wife thought so.
His wife thought so. And how'd that end for her?
Not well.
Not well.
No, I don't think he was. I think he was worshiping with his whole heart and his whole being.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, no, I don't think that was a negative thing. So you're right. Maybe that is a blending of entertainment and worship. I don't know, and that's why we're having this discussion. That's what's so fun about this discussion.
Well, even in that example, I think that there's a hint of that sort of subjectivity, where there is an individual response to these things, where David sees it one way, his wife sees it another way, and we're trying to decide, is the thing that he was doing right or wrong? Or is it, this is something that can be done, right or wrong, and it's an individual response to that thing. It's a heart posture toward the thing that we're presenting before God.
Oh, that's good. Worshiptainment. This is where I heard it. Matthew Everhard has written a book called Worshiptainment: The Modern Church's Golden Calf. That's where I heard it. I follow him, and I've heard him talk about this, and just hat tip to that, just to even think deeper if people are interested. He's saying essentially that it's all too common in our day that worship is a platform to build celebrity pastors, gain large followings, and entertain the people. Meanwhile, such churches given to these theatrics are jettisoning traditional worship, biblical doctrine, and reverent attention to the true and living God.
Let's kind of go there for a second. Put a bow on the biblical positive side, is to say that after God creates the world, he's being productive, 6 days creating a universe, and on the seventh day he is not productive. Like, efficiency is not the goal, productivity is not the goal, creating is not the goal. God rests.
Must have been tired after making all that stuff, huh?
Yeah, that's what it says in Isaiah 40. The creator of the ends of the earth grows weary and tired. Yeah, or
no, he wasn't tired.
No, he wasn't tired. I think he was modeling for his creation the pattern that he's called us to. We need rest.
Namely, Sabbath rest.
Sabbath rest.
Yeah, because it was made for man.
So we need rest. We need rhythms of rest. We need seasons in our life, ongoing seasons, weekly seasons, maybe daily periods of time, where the aim is not to be productive. And our culture just loves productivity. And the aim is not to be efficient. And our culture just loves efficiency. Multitasking is sort of this, seen as a virtue. And we were created for seasons where we were not doing those things. And whether we call it entertainment, or maybe there's forms that are different than entertainment, of like recreation, but I think there's a place for that in those seasons of rest that can help us enter into that. Yeah. Okay. So we all know, though, that there's a negative side to entertainment. We live in a culture that's amusing ourselves to death. We have this church culture in the West that's worshiptainment. I think entertainment is one of the biggest poisons in hashtag cultural Christianity today. Like we're just, entertainment is killing the church. We can ace the who wants to be a millionaire questions that have nothing to do with anything remotely relevant to anything. You can play these games of trivia with people that are just incredibly knowledgeable about Taylor Swift's third track on her fourth album, and they don't know their Bible at all. See a really dark side to entertainment, and maybe you can just walk us through how entertainment can be a negative thing in the church.
So there's an example I saw recently on social media. It was right around Easter time. It made the rounds pretty well, so maybe you guys saw it. I don't know if it was a church or a church group, something. They dressed up like the cast of Wicked, and they redid the words to, I think it was Defying Gravity, in a Christian way. And I watched that, and my first thought was, you're not making Christian music better, you're making secular music worse.
Yeah, that's good. I think you're right.
And it just gnaws at me, because I have so one of the reasons that I do what I do is I want to see Christians be excellent in every area of life, whether you're a plumber, whether you're a construction worker, or you work in the technical side of the music industry. I want to see Christians be the ones who are leading those charges in the most excellent, creative, all of those ways. And when I see something like that, it's so much the opposite of that. You're taking the world's creativity and you're saying, this is the standard, and now I'm going to make it worse and reproduce it. So with your prompt that you're giving, I think it's so easy. I think we could sit here for 2 hours and talk about all of the negative sides of Christian entertainment, whatever you see. We see examples of it every day, and I think everybody's pretty well aware, hey, this is a problem. It's gotten out of hand. Christians are not leading the charge. We're following the world's design in this area. I think that is the blanket over this whole conversation, is we know something's wrong. We wouldn't be having this conversation if something wasn't wrong, if everything was just going the right way, so to speak.
Yeah.
But that was one example I saw of it.
Yeah.
You know it when you see it, and I saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Easter this year was on 4/20, so there was a pastor that advertised it as some cannabis related,
Yeah.
Come to church and let's get high, or I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
It was insane. But the blending of, you used the word there, secular, which is really interesting to me. I had just kind of a revolution of thinking around that word when I heard where it actually came from. Maybe you know this.
Good. Yeah.
Like, we have this idea of a secular world and a sacred world, if you will.
Right.
That, like, secular is totally unrelated to the sacred.
Sure.
There's the world, as maybe John would define it in his gospel, and then there's the sacred. And so the secular term came from the church. Like, it meant that clergy, would be separated into maybe like cloistered community, and they would be the kind of the sacred clergy, if you will. And then the term secular defined the clergy that were like out at a local church in a parish somewhere. That was what a secular person was. A secular priest, going back to the Catholic Church, just was, he was just out with the people. So our term, we've taken secular and actually divorced it from its original intention.
Created this sort of Gnostic divide.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so the secular thing, we have allowed the culture to plunder the word secular rather than reclaiming it for what it originally meant, which is, where I'm going with that, is that the secular world is Christ's world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's claimed it.
Yeah.
And so the divide, I think, there really isn't the divide. If everything's his, and Kuyper's right, that there's no square inch in which Christ doesn't claim mine,
Mm-hmm.
then the secular world belongs to Christ. And so secular music and sacred music, or worship music or Christian music and secular music, I don't know, I kind of bristle at those ideas. Like, we've allowed the world, the devil, the flesh to take hold of an area of culture that they don't own.
Specifically music, we're going to say music doesn't belong to the culture, doesn't belong to secular.
Right.
Now, you back up, all right? So, Genesis 4, you've got Tubal Cain creating instruments, and it doesn't tell us how they were used, but we just know that we were made for music. The music is a huge part of the human experience. You see music at weddings, secular. Man, now I'm tripping up over that. I don't know how to phrase that anymore.
How about pagan and Christian?
I'm just saying, oh yeah, man.
Because there's a pagan culture,
To say
and there's a Christian culture.
Yeah. What I'm trying to say is, can a non-Christian celebrate a sunset and that be glorifying to God, without them ever acknowledging God in their celebrating of it? God is the author of that sunset. They are celebrating the sunset. They're never pointing to God in the sunset. Is God glorified in that?
Not explicitly. I think implicitly he is.
I was going to use the same word.
I think God is looking at them saying, "Hey,
So it's a
good
thing.
start."
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's not the best thing.
There's a question I want to ask that I think is going to help tidy this up. Was Beethoven's Fifth, was that a Christian composition or a secular composition? Or not even secular, a pagan composition?
Yeah. That's a better way of asking the question that I've been trying to ask. Like, can you write a song about your wife that's just about your wife, and that'd be a good thing?
I can't write songs, but could you write a song about your wife that's just about your wife, and it'd be a good thing?
Yeah, it's like country music. For all of its numerous flaws, you'll have a song that like a guy is just celebrating his dog and his truck and his wife, and life is good. Can we say that's a good thing? Like, this guy has a dog, he has a wife, he has a truck, it's Friday, and he's happy, and he just wants to sing about it, without necessarily calling it secular or sacred. Is that secular? Is that sacred? Beethoven's Fifth, what is that?
Mm-hmm.
There's no lyrics.
No, that's good.
And what I'm getting at in asking that question is, I think we're using categories, and we do this as an American society. We're using categories that are descriptors of the state of people's souls, and we're applying them to inanimate things. So I would push back on this idea that there is Christian music and there's pagan music. There's holy music and there's secular music. I don't think that music exists in that category. I think that music is something that God created, and that there has been an attempt on the part of the enemy to distort, disrupt, claim, whatever word you want to use. But when we start using a category like this is Christian or this is pagan, I don't think that category can appropriately and fully be applied to something that is not a person or not a soul. Do you get where I'm going with that?
Yeah. Is it good, true, and beautiful, or is it not?
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't have to explicitly use the name of God or Christ in the song for it to be worshipful. If it's good and it's true and it's beautiful.
Yeah, and Christians are going to worship with the explicitness that God is calling for in John 4. He's seeking those to worship in spirit and in truth, while a pagan might be glorifying God as they revel in the dog that they have.
And there will forever be a tension until the restoration of all things. There will be this tension of glorifying God and pleasing man, or glorifying God and glorifying yourself. I don't think that this is going to be perfectly achieved this side of eternity. But I think along those lines, the tendency and the draw for us is to take that thing that has this tension in it and say, tension exists, there is a negative side to this, so we need to do away with that. And I'm not convinced that that's the appropriate response to these things. Clearly, because of the career I've chosen.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, this brings up the question of like the Christian music industry, right? So Christian music and non-Christian music. Maybe use those terms instead. Non-Christian music can identify things that are good and true and beautiful, and still be beneficial in entertaining and bringing joy and even pointing to God implicitly, not explicitly. And it wouldn't be called Christian music.
Right.
So then Christian music, can we say fairly that it should be explicitly pointing to God in its lyrics and form?
Can we broaden that question to say Christian entertainment?
Yeah, we can. Sure.
Should be explicit, not implicit.
Should explicitly point to Christ?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Entertainment, so whether it be TV shows,
music,
music, theater, right, all those things.
I would say, again, I kind of bristle at this category because I'm soaked in it, I'm inundated in it. Christian music, I bristle at it because I don't think that it's an appropriate category to put on an inanimate thing. But I agree that if we put that label on something and say, this is Christian music, this is Christian film, this is Christian entertainment, that it ought to be explicit, not implicit.
So what you're getting at there is, can music be Christian?
Yeah.
Or are Christians just people? Can a nation be Christian? Or is it just a nation?
A nation, sure.
Can art be Christian? Is it just art? Right, yeah. So the qualifier, the adjective, using Christian as an adjective, is that even a fair thing to do?
I think that's the case I'm trying to put forward, is music isn't Christian, people are.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Whew, that's good.
Yeah, I think you're right. But we have a Christian entertainment industry.
Sure.
Are you in the Christian entertainment industry?
Yeah.
I mean, you would say that.
For sure.
But you don't like to say that.
I don't like. I would prefer, if I was going to be ultra explicit and define it for somebody, I would say I work in the entertainment industry alongside Christians for the glory of God.
I like it.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
I like it. Unfortunately, we have these terms, though, that are out there. Like, okay, just go back to...
we exist in the real world where people use this language.
The idea of Christian entertainment is they're marketing that entertainment specifically to people who profess to be Christians.
Marketing.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's the term that's
loaded.
the problem. And so I heard an interview with the Switchfoot's first, producer or whatever. And they were teenagers, they were in high school when they started. You know them. That's your favorite band, right? Switchfoot.
No, but it's my brother's favorite band.
That's your brother's favorite band. Okay.
Yep.
So Switchfoot, they're 17 years old or whatever, and they make a album, and their producer's where I have to classify this somewhere at the music store. So how do you want to classify this? Is it going to be, you have to put it in either the pop section or the country section or the Christian section. And so they had to make a choice.
They couldn't put it in the music section.
They just because right. Yeah, because that's not the way we market things. Uh-huh. Which brings up the question of why is marketing even a thing? In the entertainment business, which music would fall in, or movies or theater, it's a product
Yep.
by performers performing for an audience, and the audience wants to partake of it,
Yep.
wants to consume it. To target a consumer, you have to market it to the consumer. So are we going to market this to Christians? Are we going to market this to
Right.
country music fans? So how did we even get there? And I think Neil Postman's book is super helpful in amusing ourselves to death.
But we still log 5 hours a day on our phones scrolling social media, even though we know this is my life is literally getting sucked away right now. But here I am still doing it. We know that Netflix is just, and I just use, I mean, you can pick whatever you want, Amazon Prime, Hulu, or whatever your platform is. Like, this is just it's just a poison machine. You know, this box that has taken up center stage in my living room is just an idol factory. And what it's doing is it's desensitizing us to the immorality of every kind, the degrading of marriage, the eroding of the home, the confusion of the sexes and the sexual identity, and the propaganda of the LGBTQ and the all of these pagan agendas. And so we become a people that become passively okay with it, and then we tolerate it, we accept it, and then we celebrate it, and then we become advocates for it. How do Christians? So let's get rid of the adjective in front of entertainment, and say the entertainment is not a soul, and therefore it's neither Christian nor secular. It just is. It's entertainment. Yes.
I would affirm that. Yeah.
Yeah. How do Christians engage in entertainment in a way that builds our souls, edifies one another, strengthens relationships, like strengthens marriages, is healthy for our children, and doesn't destroy us? When do we throw the wrecking balls at Tyler's job? Do we do that now or later? So like Steve wants to like throw your hazer in the dumpster and say, "Death to you, hazer."
Which in a lot of cases is fair. Is totally fair.
I don't want a hazer in our church during our music. I don't want a disco ball in our church. I don't want lighting up the performers on the stage during our worship with music, right? So, but in the setting of a concert, I don't know that I'm totally against that.
And I'm not sure why you're totally against it in the context of the local church.
I would literally destroy it if I saw you buy one.
And that's the question is any time you start introducing something like this, I think you have to ask why. Why are we doing this? Why are we using this piece of technology?
Right. So why no hazers?
Why microphones but not hazers?
Yeah.
Well, it goes back to our discussion with Ryan Zimmer, where we talked about singing songs, hymns, and spiritual songs to one another. Right, it's not about a performance, and I feel like bringing a hazer in, a fog machine in, is making it more of a performance or a spectacle, and less about joining together in congregational worship, singing to our Lord. So that's why you wouldn't be able. I mean, you put enough haze in the room, I'm not even going to see you anyway. I can't sing to you if I can't see you.
But that's an argument of quantity, not of the substance itself.
What's the point of the haze?
So let me walk you through just a thought experiment, kind of taking this to its logical conclusion, taking it to its end. So let's say we're sitting in this room. This is going to be a church service. We're going to put a pastor right over here, and it's just us sitting in chairs listening to a pastor. Nothing wrong with that, right? I think we'd all be totally comfortable with that. Everybody listening, no problems. Let's say this grows a little bit. There's more people in the room. Okay, now we're going to move into that room over there. We're going to put the pastor elevated a little bit so that everybody can see, everybody can hear. Pastor is going to be preaching a message to the room. Still, no problem. Everybody feels pretty comfortable with that. Okay, the room's gotten bigger. The people in the back can't hear the pastor anymore. We're going to put a microphone on him, and we're going to amplify his voice a little bit. Okay, still, maybe some people are starting to bristle at that, but, we're just kind of taking this, growing it a little bit by a little bit. Let's say the room gets really big. The people in the back can't see or hear. We're going to put up some video screens on the sides. We're going to put a camera on him so that the people in the back of the room can connect with the message to the same level as the people in the front of the room. And you can see kind of where I'm going with this is, at what stage in this process do we now draw the line and we say, it has gone too far, the point has changed, the purpose has changed. Even something as simple as haze. we're gonna produce this event where we want to invite Christians in and we want to support this message. We're gonna fill the room with haze so that the lighting is even in the room from where the light source is on stage to the back of the room, so that the light is reflecting the same way in the entire space. Okay, well now how much haze is too much haze? Do you see where I'm going with this? Where there, at some point it feels arbitrary to me to say, this is the point where we've crossed into a pagan environment, and using those terms about things that themselves are not inherently pagan or Christian.
Mm-hmm. We understand the point of amplification.
Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the Word of God. And so if you want everyone to hear the Word of God, you have to amplify
Yeah.
That's why Jesus was on a mount when he gave the Sermon on the Mount.
Yeah, but it's really cool.
So
like, he basically used the available technology of the day with the acoustics in order for people to hear, which is just is pretty awesome.
Right.
We might say we understand the thought process of the video screen, right? You can't see. Maybe we have a funeral here where the sanctuary is too small. We can't fit everybody in, so they got to go into a side room, and we want them to be able to see and not just hear, and so we live stream it over to the side room. Haze, what would you say the point of haze is?
The technical purpose of haze is to aid in the reflection of light. So as light fills a room, if you fill the room with these particulates that we call haze, the light refracts and reflects evenly throughout the whole room, so that you don't have a big bright stage and then just a black hole in the back of the room. The haze is there to make it more even. So in some ways, I think somebody might make an argument that using haze creates less of a spectacle of the performer and creates more of an environment where everybody is equally participating visually. I'm not saying I'm making that argument, but I could see somebody making that argument that the purpose of haze is to invite everybody else visually with the light level in the room into the same space that the stage is.
I could also see somebody making an argument. Steve loves it, by the way. You can see it in his eyes.
And this is not me advocating for Sunday morning church service haze machines. Well, that's not where I'm going with this.
That's what I was wondering. When you're speaking of this, you're speaking of the context of a production of a concert at the Target Center,
which I would put in the category of business, not worship gathering.
Yeah. Well.
Which is another distinction that we'll need to...
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
So if we are okay, Tim's okay with us manipulating sound. Why not manipulating light? So,
in the context of the local gathering?
In the context of the church gathering, for corporate worship, we are going to manipulate sound with our keyboard machines. We're gonna create the effect of strings. We're gonna create the effect of all kinds of ambiance is coming through our keyboard every Sunday. Mm-hmm. We're gonna add reverb to our microphones to create an effect. It's not real.
Mm-hmm. And a side note, reverb is an effect that's used to make you feel like you're in a larger space than you are.
There it is. Yeah. Yes. We're okay saying we're gonna manipulate all kinds of sound.
Sure.
But when it comes to light, no, hands off. That's not okay. We've crossed the line with light. Dimming the lights, no. Haze, why? For the sake of manipulating our lighting experience, no, that's off.
Yeah, I think in the context of the local gathering, I mean, we've manipulated light all throughout, our history as Christians. So when they were building great cathedrals, what did they do with those? They put the windows up high at a place where the light could come down onto the congregation so people could see each other, and then they started putting stained glass windows in to manipulate the light that was coming in through the windows to refract it. And so all of these things, but this was natural light. If you're sitting in a beautiful cathedral with high windows, natural light flowing down through those windows or stained glass windows into the cathedral, it's drawing you up out of yourself into something bigger. And I think that is, for me, being born in the wrong millennium, I just really love that idea. And I think when you start manipulating it to the point where we're at now, church buildings are built in strip malls, and they're not designed to be like the center of the community anymore. Like, we're not going up to the Mount of God to go meet with him anymore. We're going down into the strip mall. And now because of that, it hasn't been, the building has not been designed in the way that they used to be, the cathedral settings. And so now you're in a situation where you have to maybe manipulate light through unnatural lighting sources.
Well, and Zimmer's arguing the same thing when it comes to sound. We didn't go to the context of choirs, but in your cathedral setting, sound was these beautiful, pipe organs or choirs, or the acoustics. They were built for sound and light. Our buildings are not today, so we manipulate the sound with reverb to make it feel like it's that cathedral setting. Why not also then with the buildings that we have manipulate light?
And you use the word beautiful. Why would a pipe organ or something like that be beautiful in a space if it's purely utilitarian?
Right.
And in those kinds of cathedrals, these big spaces, ancient church gathering spaces, was there art on the walls? Did somebody have a painting of the Last Supper or something like that? And if so, what's the purpose of that? If it's purely for beauty, you have beautiful art, you have a beautiful organ, can you have beautiful light? And if, like you're saying, we have to kind of mimic that in some of our modern spaces because the local church gathering in America doesn't exist in a coliseum or in a big cathedral. Yeah. So if we're mimicking some of those things from an earlier time, can you mimic the light? Can you mimic the beauty of the space that you used to be in?
What do you think, Tim?
Well, going back to the haze, I was thinking about how it's supposed to even the light so it's the same as with on stage. My thought was, why do we have lights on the musicians to begin with? Why do there need to be special lights there? Because I feel like they're no different than everyone else in the congregation. They're just helping to lead the hearts.
Good.
So don't need colored lights or anything. I'm with Steve on the just let the natural light in.
Or if you don't have natural light, maybe create enough light with fixtures.
Yeah, just normal ceiling lights.
Like, why do we even dim the lights, right?
Uh-huh.
I'd argue that we don't need less light during our time of worshiping with music. I think we need more light.
Yeah. So I'm 100% in agreement there. I'm trying to just have this... so the fog machine, back in my seminary days, was just the easy punchline. Mm-hmm. We're never going to have a fog machine. And then we just move on in the conversation. And you go, well, okay, actually, you get... Why? Because the argument against the fog machine, if you're going to be consistent, is the same argument for the reverb that we are all totally okay with.
Mm-hmm. Or is the same argument for the preacher is not going to be on stage elevated in front of everybody. He's going to be in the center of the room and we will all be around him.
We're okay with something. So we sit in theater style rooms now. It's very much so. The whole experience is very theater-esque, very entertainment-esque. We come in, and then you sit down. You're all facing the same direction. Come with nothing to offer this service.
Entertain me.
Yeah, I'm ready to receive whatever you all have created for me. But then we dim the lights for the music, so the attention's all arrested in the same same direction.
On the performers.
On the performers. We have the lighting on the performers, all of that. And then when it's done, we leave and we go home and that was
a good show.
It was a good show, right? Lighting is so important to me as far as the level, because Ephesians 5 says that we're to be singing to one another, and if I can't see you, I can't sing to you. Which is why I think, I just love to see the whole thing restructured. I'd love it if we did have that pastor in somewhat of a middle of at least a semicircle where everybody can see everybody, and there's no stage. There's just the body, but you got to redesign the whole. Redesign the whole thing.
Or you just need to put in more light. And I think it goes back to Neil Postman's.
That doesn't change your position, though. I'm still
you're looking at each other.
I'm saying we need redesign the whole thing.
I'm next to you. I can turn and sing to you. Maybe the whole time I can turn and sing to my wife.
Have you done that? Let's try to do that today.
Let's do it. All right. What did I just set myself up for?
You and I, we're gonna turn and we're gonna sing to each other today.
That's gonna be weird, but let's try it.
Right.
Well, okay. So the whole thing that we're talking about, you were talking about a production on Sunday morning, essentially, a show. And that's my pushback on all of this. That's my pushback with fog machines. Even is that we've turned it into amusement. We've turned it into entertainment, largely because we're an entertainment-driven culture. We entertain ourselves to death with everything else all week long, and then on Sunday morning we just duplicate it.
We're basically doing what Tyler said, and we're taking what the culture has offered us, and we're just giving a really poor imitation.
That's it.
We're using their standard instead of setting the standard.
We're using their standard of entertainment and making that what our Sunday gatherings are, and it's not as good as the world's entertainment.
That's right. And there's churches all over the country this morning that are going to dim the lights in an auditorium, put the lights on the musicians, fog the room, create artificial light. Yep, put the musicians up on the screen so that you can see them. Meanwhile, you're in darkness or in whatever light's been created by the haze, and because you're in a show. You've duplicated a performance on a Sunday morning because people want to be entertained. They want to go, they want to get their coffee at the coffee bar, they want to walk into the auditorium seating, they want to sit, and they want to engage in entertainment or concert-like worship with music, if you will. They want to hear their TED Talk with a Bible verse, and they want to leave better feeling about themselves, and then come back next Sunday and get filled again.
And you would say that's okay, just not in a church setting.
So I kind of touched on this earlier, where I see the local church gathering and a business very differently.
Yeah.
And I think that the two exist in different realms. We're given very explicit instructions in Scripture for what the church gathering is, what it should look like, how it should be structured, and I don't see the same amount of attention paid to these are the stipulations and how you need to run a business. These are the things to avoid. You need to have this structure. I think the two are different, and I think that the kind of what we're touching on is that there has been a blending of those two things. That we have taken the business element of the entertainment industry and incorporated it into our church gatherings, when the two should be nothing alike.
Sure. Okay. So now what Steve doesn't like...
Wrecking ball!
Steve doesn't like that you're going to market entertainment as a worship experience for Christians and then charge an admission fee for them to come and worship.
Bingo.
Steve doesn't like that the wealthy are...
When you hear him say Steve, think I.
The wealthy are invited to come to the front, and those that don't have means, well, you go and you sit in the back, almost as if Jesus talked about that in
Book of James. You sit here in a good place.
Or is that James? Yeah.
Or you can't even get in at all because you can't afford it.
Yeah. Yep. So
ticket prices are through the roof for some of these concerts. I researched it last night, and yeah, they can start at $15 or $30. Most of them are like $40 or $50 to start, sitting up in the nosebleed section where you're...
Which is where I was at Hillsong.
immersed in haze at the top. You're literally...
I'm like, do you see them? My buddy's like, they're over there. I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right.
Did you bring your binoculars?
Because you're poor, and you didn't get the preferred seat, but the guy that paid, I think, up to $2,200 to sit on the floor can be up close and literally smell Stephen Furtick as he comes by.
We're name dropping. I love it.
Sorry.
And then when it's over, you
come into Excel Energy Center in October.
Right. And then when you're done, you can buy the merch that has their face on. You know, like when I was growing up, I had a Michael W. Smith T-shirt. I love Michael W. Smith. You know, all love. I had a shirt that was just his face, the whole front.
Rachel still has that shirt. And wears it unironically.
Well, and if you...
It's just his face. You know?
Good news is, if you pay for like the premium tickets to the Elevation concert coming up, you get a 20% discount on that shirt.
Man, look at that.
And a free book.
And a free book.
From Stephen Furtick himself.
What a steal.
What? Yeah.
I think you have to pay for the autograph, though. Pretty sure.
Sure. So all that Steve doesn't like. And
I don't like it.
And you make your money there. So
did Jesus pay for the Sermon on the Mount?
Right.
No. Did Miriam pay to listen to her, or have people pay to listen to her song? No. Did David charge Saul, to sing to him and play instruments for him? No. And so, yeah, I really struggle with, we're going to have a gospel service, worship service at a stadium event, and we're going to charge $2,100 to get closer.
Right. So, explain yourself.
Explain yourself. You might be surprised at this response that I could not agree more with all of these critiques, criticisms, that it makes you feel slimy. It makes you read the book of James and say, what are we doing? We're charging people $2,100 to sit closer to the pastor. That's crazy. That's insanity. One of the things that I'm really grateful for is that I work for myself now. So I get to pick and choose. Do I want to go be a part of this event? Do I want to support what is being promulgated here, or do I want to distance myself from that? So that's one way that I've kind of parsed this out. The other thing that I'm in total agreement is I can't stand this blending of worship is music is business. I think that that's such a problem, and it goes back to what we were talking about before about these categories that we put on things, like music is secular, music is Christian, music is pagan, whatever it might be. Worship is not music. When you are selling a worship event, there are so many presuppositions baked in there that you're expecting people to identify worship is music, and so I'm buying a ticket to a worship event, meaning that there's going to be musical entertainment that I passively participate in. And I think that just at the foundation of it, we've gotten it totally wrong.
Yeah.
Worship should be something that it's an ongoing posture of your heart.
That's right.
And so when you come to a concert, a venue, an event, whatever it might be, that's not when the worship should begin. And so I think it's just a mistake to even market something as an evening of worship or a night of worship to begin with. I think that's such a big miss.
Agreed.
I am so frustrated at artists, organizations, pastors, whatever it might be, that will market an event as a worship event, ignoring that they're running a business. I think that Christians should be involved in business. Christians should be the best business owners. They should be the most talented at what they do. And I want to give the same leeway to a Christian entertainer as I do to a Christian plumber. Just because you do plumbing and you happen to be a Christian doesn't mean you ought not charge people for your services. Doesn't mean that people should make you feel guilty that you charge maybe more than some of your secular pagan counterparts who run secular pagan plumbing countries, and I'm doing that in air quotes for people that aren't watching, because plumbing is not pagan, plumbing is not Christian, plumbing is work. So what I do is work. I do my work, and I try to do it in a way that the Lord will establish the work of my hands.
Yeah.
I don't want to impose these categories that say, I'm selling worship to you, therefore pay a premium for a quote-unquote better worship experience. At the onset, we've confused categories, and we've set this thing up to fail from the get-go. Going back to something I said earlier, the reason that I continue to do what I do and why I do it is because I want to reclaim this area. I think that Christians should be involved in entertainment, and we should be doing it to the highest level. We should be the most technically excellent people in our fields, and I don't want to exclude entertainment as a part of that.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's good.
So,
what else don't you like?
No. I'm just trying to. I'm trying to distill that. You see yourself as a Christian working in the entertainment industry.
Yes, which is a business.
Which is business, particularly through the medium of music. Full stop.
Yes.
The songs that are being sung are intentionally more explicit about the goodness of God, the work of the gospel. So, like, the people that are coming to this entertainment venue experience are being just intentionally, explicitly exposed to the glories of God, the gospel, even some of what Rachel does. But you're trying to say, this is what I'm not doing, is connecting this to James in the context of the gathered community, the rhythm of the church, congregational worship. That is not this. People are not paying money to get good seats at an event that James is talking about.
I'm saying that they are, and we ought not be.
Okay.
I'm saying what has happened in current society as it stands is we are marketing Sunday morning church. We're marketing the church gathering. And my desire is that the Christian entertainment industry, Christian music, whatever you want to call it, would stop pretending that we're not running businesses.
Yeah.
I don't want to call a Christian plumber who pretends like he's doing ministry when he's doing business to provide for his family.
Right.
And I think the pitfall that we have is that you have this blending of categories where a Christian entertainment event is marketing itself as though we're not a business, and we're trying to kind of hide the fact that we're running a business and there's all these people whose livelihoods depend on this business, but we're going to kind of couch it in the same way that you would attend a Sunday morning gathering.
Right.
And the two are not the same and shouldn't be confused to be the same.
So back to what I said, my descriptor is what you would want it to be.
Yes.
That's the dream of what the industry that you're in would be that.
Yep.
So you're trying to plunder it from the inside.
Yes.
I love it, and I think he's in agreement with us.
Yeah.
1,000%. The issue is with definitions that the world's put on this. This is a night of worship, right? So you go to the stadium for a night of worship. Mm-hmm. Well, it's a night of entertainment that is Christian in its source, desire, put on by Christians, and so the marketing of the event is maybe the bigger problem. Like, you're going to have entertainment no matter what, and so if we leave entertainment to the pagans, the Christians have just taken themselves out of the gospel opportunity in that moment.
That's right.
And so I think he's absolutely right. You have to. It's the marketing that's really the issue. And a Christian plumber, a plumber who happens to be a Christian, should be paid just as much as the plumber. If he's better. If he's better, he should be paid more. And Christians should seek out the plumber who's a Christian that is good at his trade.
I think so.
And pay him what he's due, right?
Yeah.
Same goes to entertainment, and you're absolutely right. Excellence in entertainment is the key. And too often what's happened is we've taken pagan entertainment and we've just made it a poor Christian version.
Caricature of it.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you're excellent in your entertainment, does the same principle apply to a concert? I could almost get behind that if they would not market it as a night of worship.
Yeah.
If they would just market it as great music put on by Christians in excellence with great lighting and a great show. I'm okay with fog machines at the Target Center. That's great. That's because I want to be taken out. Going back to your disco ball example, what's the lyric that you said when the stars were formed or something?
100 billion galaxies are born.
And then boom, a disco light comes on and stars, and it draws you up and out, and in your imagination soars into the beauties of God at creation. That's awesome. And I'm totally cool with that, but it's not a nice night of worship necessarily. It's entertainment. And so let's not, market it as some kind of a worshipful experience, even though it is.
I was going to say, man, I was worshiping.
It is worshipful.
I was worshiping.
Yeah. But, listen, if you want to invite your buddy, right, who is not a Christian, who's maybe God's knocking on the door in their heart, but you're like, hey, you want to go to this concert with me? Right? And he looks it up and it's like, it's a night of worship. Dude's going to immediately be like, no, I don't really want to go do that.
Yeah.
But if you say, hey man, I got a really cool band that I want you to come check out with me, and he looks it up and it's like, entertainment presented by Casting Crowns, like the marketing of it would be so much more effective.
That's a different message.
Yeah. And then he shows up to this awesome experience that's done on a level that the pagans put out.
Yeah. Yeah, or better.
Or better. It should be better.
Yeah. So do you think, so as one has spent a lot of time with Casting Crowns, would you say that Mark and company would be down with marketing their concert as a night of entertainment?
I have never seen Casting Crowns specifically. Maybe I'm wrong. I've never seen them market a concert as this is a worship experience that you're coming to. I don't think I've ever seen that from them, which is one of the reasons. I mean, their gospel culture is all of the things that we're talking about right now. This is not the point. We're using this as a vehicle to point to the point.
So their tour was called An Evening with Casting Crowns.
Yeah,
An Evening with Casting Crowns.
Casting Crowns
Very
is
cool.
what the label is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, I think there's plenty of...
that's cool. I like that a lot.
Plenty of bands that are doing this. I mean, Skillet is an example, and I know you struggle with Skillet a little bit, but Skillet goes into a heavy metal setting. And where there's lots of debauchery, where there's plenty of pagan bands, mostly pagan bands, but Skillet puts on a gospel presentation in the midst of that darkness. And I think that's awesome.
Plundering Leviathan.
That is Plundering Leviathan. John Cooper. He gets it in that regard.
They've also matured a lot over the years.
Yeah.
Skillet.
Yeah.
Walk us through some of the more particularly redemptive areas that you've seen in the entertainment industry that you're a part of.
I want to touch on two. One is it kind of has to do with the moment that you're talking about when the disco ball comes on and you're just in that moment.
Yeah.
That moments like that are what I live for and what I do. Everything that I do, I'm asking this why question. How can I help to create a moment that is going to not distract from what the message is that's being given, but help support that message? What can I put on a screen so that the person who's sitting up in the nosebleeds is going to have the same experience, kind of leveling that playing field, talking about the book of James? I want them to have the same experience as the person who's in the front row. I want them to connect at the same level as the person who's in the front row. So whether that's a facial expression, whether that's an instrumental moment, whether it's a disco ball, I'm trying to support everything that's happening. I don't want somebody to be watching the screen because, oh, that looks really cool, and I can kind of ignore what's happening over here. I want that to be a reflection of what's going on. So that's the first thing.
Cool.
Second thing is what is something that's unique about the Christian music industry. Again, that's a loaded term, but we've spent a lot of time unpacking that. Something that's so unique about it is if you go to a pop concert, a country concert, any other heavy metal concert, something that's unique about a Christian event is there is this expectation that when you go, there's going to be a period of 20 to 30 minutes where they shut everything down. All the entertainment stops, all of the lights and the sound and the fog and everything is going to calm down, and we're going to focus in on somebody walking out on stage and giving a message for 20, 30 minutes, whether it's a gospel presentation, whether it's a nonprofit that wants to invite Christians into action to partner with an organization. So that's something you mentioned earlier that Rachel partners with, and that's actually how we met. Was out on the road. I was doing technical video production. She was working for an organization called Compassion International. And what they do is they come to events knowing that there's going to be Christians in the room and saying, hey, we know that we have a shared commitment to the gospel. Here's a way that we can invite you in to partner with that. We know that tickets are expensive. We try to make them as affordable as possible. This is a business. This business relies on organizations like this to function, and so now we're extending that opportunity to you to partner with an organization to end poverty in Jesus' name, to support Bible translations around the world, any number of things. So we talk about Plundering Leviathan. This to me seems like a very tangible, black and white, this is something that is unique to this industry, that even though we're talking about all of these things that get co-opted from a pagan environment, this is something that's unique to Christian events that is, it's almost an expectation at this point, that when you go to a Christian concert, you're going to be invited to participate in some way.
Yeah. And when you say Christian concert, if we're trying to get, the semantics down, you mean you're going to a concert that's put on by Christians? Put on by Christians,
run by Christians. The message is at its core going to be a Christian message.
Yeah.
And there's going to be an expectation of participation with that Christian message, not just passive presentation.
Yeah.
And that's a big way that I see this redemptive, we're not just co-opting, we're leading the charge in this area. You won't find that at a quote-unquote non-Christian event.
Yeah. Give us a highlight or two in your experience
of just a moment.
Like a moment that was uniquely special.
So I was thinking about this, and I think the biggest one that just keeps coming to mind was a couple of years ago. I was at a conference that was marketed and geared toward young adults, so middle school, high school age. And I got to be in charge of the LED display build for the whole thing. So it was a massive undertaking. It was really complicated. Once we got through, load in, everything's teched, rehearsed, we get to the moment where the room opens. Everything kind of, there's a countdown on the screen. The room goes quiet, the lights come down, there's kind of a beat. You wait, and the lights come up, and you hear the cheers and everything. And in that moment, there are any number of directions your mind can go. You can be thinking about, oh, this is overproduced. This is, I wonder if they're doing it for personal gain on the stage. The tickets are too expensive. Like, And those could all be valid critiques and criticisms. It was difficult for me to go to any of those places because as the lights came up and the LED walls turned on, the first words to come across the screen were "All hail King Jesus." And there's this room of people that as soon as you see that, everybody starts roaring and cheering and praising, and everybody in tandem is hailing the King. And so in that moment, I can't be any other place than "All hail King Jesus."
That sounds like the post-millennial dream right there, man.
love it. Yeah.
In the entertainment industry, the lights come on, and in the entertainment industry, all hail King Jesus. Which I'm like, man, when you're watching the sunset, that ought to be the theme of your heart. All hail King Jesus. Or when you're watching the light show that God is putting on in the sky with shooting stars in northern Minnesota, or the Aurora Borealis, or like whatever. All hail King Jesus. But to make it so explicit in an entertainment industry, lights come on, even entertainment is pointing your heart to Jesus. For Tyler to go, I'm going to invest my life in that. I don't know. I like it.
Well, and he hit it. Heart disposition is the key. Right? Like his heart disposition is he wants to see King Jesus hailed.
Yeah.
Right. And he wants people that come and partake in this experience to see King Jesus for who he really is. And there are some, unfortunately, that don't have that same heart disposition. The post-millennial hope is that all eventually will see that, see it for the same reason, or have that same heart disposition.
Yeah.
That as the waters fill the earth, right,
and every
so will
realm,
the glory of the Lord in every realm.
Politics, media, entertainment, education, entertainment.
Sure. Yeah. I think Tyler's plundering it.
And I know that we're landing the plane here. There's one other thing I just want to touch on with the heart disposition. Yeah. There's a verse in Philippians 1 where Paul's talking about this, and he says, "Whether in pretense or truth, Christ is preached, and in this I will rejoice." I've touched a couple of times on how it's so easy. I think that the criticisms are abundant. I think that there are so many obvious things that we can point to and say, we're missing it. That's not right. We're doing this for the wrong reasons. My encouragement to myself, I have to battle this all the time, myself and fellow believers, is can we, even in the midst of that, say, Christ is being preached, and in that, I will rejoice.
That's good.
That is good.
That's good.
Yeah. Because that's exactly what Paul is saying. Some people are doing this out of selfish gain.
Right.
And it doesn't matter, he said, as long as Christ is being preached. Yeah, he's got a good point there.
If we want to kind of land it with practical application, this isn't going to get solved overnight. This stuff is going to keep going on. And I would just encourage believers to try to adopt that posture more than the finger pointing. The finger pointing needs to happen. It needs to be reclaimed and plundered, and all of those things are valid. But I think that to the individual, the heart posture, I would encourage people to go toward Philippians 1:18.
By the grace of God, you and Rachel are hoping to raise a family. Are you going to have a TV in your home?
If we do, this is already the case in our current home, if we do, it will either not be out all the time, or the room will not be pointed toward the TV.
Yeah.
That won't be the focus.
That won't be the focus.
The living room or wherever it goes.
Have you and Rachel thought about how you're going to create an entertainment culture in your home, whether it's video games, board games, recreation? Is that an intentional conversation that you guys are having?
Yeah, we personally gravitate toward board games. I like the way that connects people at the table. We do a lot of cooking together. I think cooking can be entertaining.
Absolutely. That's that first definition in Webster's 828 is the table. Mm-hmm. What do you think of The Chosen?
I like The Chosen, and I would put it in exactly the same category as everything that we've talked about. Okay. That we ought to be able to have criticisms of anything like that, but we also ought to rejoice that Christ is preached through any medium.
Amen. I rest my case. Do you have anything that you haven't shared to our church family or to those watching that you feel would be helpful for them in the conversation of entertainment?
I think maybe just another, I know we're landing the plane, but something else is Romans 14. And I think that can be applicable to things like The Chosen. I think it can be applicable to music, board games, whatever it might be. Romans 14, if you just read through it, there's this air of there are certain things that aren't black and white. And if you really wrestle with something, if you have a strong conviction about this is not honoring God, you shouldn't do it. So if that's The Chosen, if you watch The Chosen and you just, man, there's something about this that doesn't sit right in my spirit, I would totally counsel you to not watch The Chosen. I think that the danger in that is when we take that and we use it prescriptively for the rest of the church.
So you're talking about like Romans 14, so each of us shall give account himself to God. Verse 12, therefore let us not judge one another anymore, but rather resolve this, not to put a stumbling block or a cause to fall in our brother's way. I know and am convinced by the Lord Jesus that there is nothing unclean of itself. And then he goes on to basically say what you just said. Let each one be convinced in his own mind.
You're talking about festivals and foods and those things.
Yeah.
Unless Jonathan Rumi playing Jesus is a second commandment violation, but that's another question.
Yeah.
If it's disputable, in disputable matters, right? Yeah, be convinced in your own mind. Don't lay a burden on somebody else. I agree with that.
Happy is he who does not condemn himself in what he approves, but he who doubts is condemned if he, in this context, eats, because he does not eat from faith, for whatever is not from faith is sin. Tyler, it's been so awesome having this conversation.
Thanks for having me.
It was awesome to have you here, and you opened my mind to some ideas and some things, and I'm happy to call you a brother.
Yeah, same.
And so good, man. You're doing a great job. Keep it up, and may you be rewarded greatly with your endeavors. Last words, how can people find you? Because you have your own
I don't really have my own company per se. I just kind of work for myself as a contractor.
Freelance or contract. Okay.
Yeah, find me on social media. We can chat.
Tyler Cornelius on Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram.
And Instagram.
Yep.
All right.
Cornelius. The Newsboys once wrote a song called Cornelius.
I was really excited back when it came out.
Yeah, the whole song is about Cornelius.
It's all about Tyler?
At the time, I thought so.
Yeah, they were, and sort of the punchline is they're trying to figure out what rhymes with Cornelius. It's pretty good.
Go check it out. Yeah, in the show notes. Yeah. All right. Well, blessings on you and your wife Rachel, and thank you for coming. Blessings on your business, and for those of you watching and listening out there, remember Leviathan is bound. Go take his stuff. Until next time.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, it was great.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
You're toast. So what are some of the bands that you work with?
What was the point?
It's great.
These are not the droids you're looking for.
These are not the droids.
Yeah, no. So I haven't been. Yeah, no. We're working on that phrase. It's a common thing that gets bannered about around here.
Minnesota phrases? Yeah, no. No, yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Means yeah. Yeah, no means no.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
No.
So like in a post-millennial world, we're not heading into a world like just void of entertainment because it's been
An entertainmentless utopia.
Entertainment isn't going anywhere, as if to say it's not leaving. It's here to stay.
It's here to stay, and so if we're in a post-millennial mentality where all things are coming under the subjectivity and the authority of Christ, we have to have entertainment.
Yes.
That is for Christ, but entertainment will never in itself be like, this bookshelf is not Christian, a song, Beethoven's Fifth, none of those are Christian things.
Yeah.
Yes.
But like, entertainment's not going anywhere, so we have to be actively in it, and we have to be figuring out ways to plunder it.
That's right.
To claim it for Christ.
That's right.
Especially if we are post-millennialists, we got to figure out how does that look in entertainment, because entertainment is here to stay because God designed it.
Go take it all back.
So we're going to take it all back.
Love it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not theirs.
Yeah.
It is Christ. It's ours. Were you baptized as a baby?
I wasn't baptized as a baby.
Just curious.
Yeah. This has been a big topic of debate lately. So no.
Wasn't.
Who does that? Sorry, anyway.
But yeah.
But we'll get you baptized, bro. Don't worry.
We are an SBC church.
Okay. SBC church. You are a pastor at an SBC church.
I'm an elder.
Yes, I repeat myself. You are a pastor elder at the SBC church.
It's fun, guys.
Thanks, man.
Same thing.